What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 6 of Pentesting for Noobs. On today's episode, we are going to be working on a box called Nibbles. Now, Nibbles is a Linux-based machine, and it's going to teach us a little bit about web enumeration, and more importantly, it's going to teach us some of the basics of Linux privilege escalation, especially with the sudo -l command, and we'll get into that a little bit further as we get into the machine. So as always, if you like this video, please do hit that like button, the subscribe button, and hit that bell as well. And of course, leave a comment if you like the video. If you found room for improvement, also leave a comment on that. So Nibbles lives at 10.10.10.75. Go ahead and get your nmap scan started on that. Boot up your machine, do everything you need to do as we've done in the past episodes, and I will meet you over in the video. Alright, now on our Kali machine, taking a look at our nmap scan, we see that there are two ports that have returned. One is port 22, which is SSH, and the other is port 80, which is HTTP. Now, in this scenario, it's actually quite common, and we've talked about it in previous videos, where you see something like port 22 and port 80, and that's it. In this vector, especially on easy machines like this for capture the flag, typically port 80 is the way in, and port 22 would be utilized in some way later on. You might get a reverse shell on port 80, you might find credentials on port 80, something here might lead us to a nice shell here later on. Typically, the version of SSH is not the way in. There's not like usually RCEs or remote code execution on versions. So we could search definitely on this open SSH and see if there's anything out there. My guess would be there isn't. On top of that, we see that there is Ubuntu running on the machine. So this would be useful information for us just during information gathering process. So we'll store this in our back pocket and note that it's running Ubuntu on the back end. So we already know we're up against a Linux machine. On top of that, we can kind of tell we're against a Linux machine with the SSH and the Apache here. So again, Ubuntu showing here on this HTTP service. So a couple things that we can do is we can look for exploits against Apache as well. So for example, in a tool that I haven't shown you but wanted to show you is a tool called searchsploit. So we could say, hey, we've got Apache open, and maybe we want to just quickly know, is there any kind of exploits for this 2.4.18? Well, we can come down here and we can start typing in searchsploit and just go ahead and tab and autocomplete. Now, the thing I will say about searchsploit is that you don't have to be very specific. If you're very specific with your query, it's actually worse off for you. And I'll show you an example. So if you say, hey, I'm up against Apache 2.4.18, it's going to say, I didn't find anything. But if we back that out a little bit and we say, hey, we're against Apache 2.4, okay, now some stuff starts showing up. When we get very version specific like this, we might actually miss some details in terms of exploits. As you can see here, there's an exploit right here from 2.417 to 2.4.38, and this 2.4.18 actually falls in line in here. So it's important to note that let's not be too specific if we use this searchsploit tool. Now what searchsploit is doing is it's pulling down from exploit database, which is actually already pulled down in updates on your machine. Since Kali, the owners of Kali Linux also run exploit database, they have a nice little repository of all the exploits that are on exploit database on your machine. So we're just doing an offline search here. We don't even have to touch the web to do this search. And any exploit that has been pulled down is available on your machine. You can see we have a shell script here, PHP. If we see a .rb for Ruby, that means it's a Metasploit module most of the time. So we could see those things as well. And for example, on this exploit, we can tell some other things as well. It's an exploit for Linux. That's good. That checks a box. But it's a local exploit, meaning we have to be on the machine or some sort of already have access to it, right, to exploit this. So this isn't going to work for us. We're more after a remote exploit of some sort. And we're really not after any kind of denial of service exploits. Typically, especially in a real pen test, those are out of scope. But when we're talking about having a capture the flag like we're doing here, these are really out of scope, right? We don't want to deny service to our box. There's no point in doing that. Now, say this was a 2.4.17 and we know it's vulnerable to denial service. On a report, we would actually write this up. We'd absolutely write it up. We would note, hey, you know, this version is vulnerable to X, Y, and Z, including denial service. See these write-ups here as to what can happen if it was running on Windows. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of further enumeration. I don't think Apache 2.4.18 is actually the way in here. So if we go out to the interwebs and we just say 10.10.10.75 and we get a hello world. Okay, so not a lot to go on here. There's a few things that I always do when I first get to a web page, and I'm going to note that this box does teach valuable lessons. Again, we're starting to get off of the really, really easy machines, and this is still going to be easy. This is going to feel more capture the flag like than anything else that we've done so far. And that's okay. We're starting to get into some of these hack the box machines that are going to feel capture the flag. And our take on this is going to be that from a realistic perspective as much as we can do. But there are going to be some methods along the way that we're going to encounter that are going to be capture the flag like. On top of that, there's going to be homework that I'm going to give you, a good machine here towards the end that I think is going to allow us. I've skipped a couple machines that are really easy and kind of repetitive of what we've done. I'm going to give that as homework to allow us to test our knowledge and see where we need to fill in gaps. And then we'll do a quick review video for that here in the future. But I'll give that out towards the end of the video. So back into this session here, few things that we can do from this point. We can go ahead and start up Nikto scan and do some vulnerability scanning against this web page. We can take the directory here and do some directory busting, because if we just see this and this is all we have, we don't have any links or anything, maybe there's something running on the back end of this server here, and we'll have to use directory busting to find that. On top of that, we can do some enumeration here. If you have a tool called Wapalizer, now Wapalizer is a great tool. You can see here that we've pulled down Apache and Ubuntu. If you don't have Wapalizer installed, I do recommend just Googling Wapalizer here and installing this plugin for your Firefox. So from here, let's go ahead and just right click and view the source. I've said this to you guys before, but again, especially on capture the flags, they like to hide little comments in the source code. This is a realistic perspective in the sense that we should be looking for comments in source codes by developers. We should be looking for hard-coded credentials and anything of value that might be in source code. So it's always important to look at the source code. As you can see here, there is a comment pointing to a Nibble blog directory. So we're just going to copy this and come over here, and I'm just going to type it out, but go into Nibble blog, not the admin page, just like this. And you'll see that we are given this nice little blog here. You can see Nibbles, yum yum. And we've got that hello world and not a whole lot of anything else. We got some categories. We can click around, enumerate, see if there's anything here that we can do. And for the most part, we are pretty stuck. We can view the source code and see if there's any information on this Nibbles blog here. If we can see any kind of version or what it's running on, what the platform. I'm not seeing anything right off the bat. We can come back and also look at the Wapalizer and see if there's anything of interest here. Okay, it's running on jQuery, it's running on PHP. That might help us if we get some sort of exploit going for this. So in terms of what we see, there's nothing readily available. I don't have anything to exploit. So the next thing that we would do here is we would do a quick search exploit on this. We can just say search exploit. If I could type in the panel here, search exploit, and we'll just say something like Nibbles. Okay, that didn't work. How about Nibble? See, I got too specific there. Okay, so it is actually called Nibble blog, and we can see that there's a couple exploits out for it. One is a version 3, and it's got SQL injections on the web app. And then we've got a 4.0.3 that's very specific on an arbitrary file upload that allows remote code execution. And it's a .rb, which means that this is a Metasploit module available. So what's the difference between these two? Well, a SQL injection can lead to a shell. It can lead to database dumps. It can lead to a lot of malicious stuff. But not always. You could get SQL injection and not find anything of interest. On the attack side, this thing here, this arbitrary file upload with remote code execution, way more juicy. Remote code execution means that we could be sitting at our house, exploit this, and get code execution to talk back to us without ever having to be local. Okay, so in terms of the nastier exploit, it's this all the way. Now, we don't know what either of these do, but the one I would be eager to look at is this 4.0.3. So in order to do that, I'm just going to boot up Metasploit really quick, and we can actually load up that module and see a little bit more information. We could also go out to the web and do this to look at the file, and we could actually probably read the Ruby file and pull the information down, but just in a clear-cut way. Let's just search Nibble real quick, and then we'll just copy this guy here and say use, paste, and then all we have to do is type info. So from info, we can see the description here. It says Nibble blog contains a flaw that allows authenticated remote attacker to execute arbitrary PHP code. This was tested on 4.0.3. We've got a blog about it here. We've got the CVE details. Very interesting stuff. But if it says authenticated, that means we need to authenticate. That means there's probably some sort of login page somewhere. So what can we do here? Well, we don't see an admin panel or login page or anything. We could just type in admin and get lucky, which is what I did right off the bat. I just typed in admin.php and found it. Now, there are other methods to doing this as well. We could go into a new tab here, and we could run something like dirbuster. And in dirbuster, we could copy this address here like this and just paste it. And then add in the 80 at the end right here like this. Now, my typical settings would be to say to go faster on this. And we could browse to our file and do something like base here, and then we're going to go to user, go to share, and just start typing wordless. So type in WO and you'll see wordless comes up second. In here, there's a dirbuster folder. I believe I've actually shown you guys this before, but it doesn't hurt to show it again. And I always choose the medium list because I like to be as robust as possible. We can start with the Nibbles blog directory. So we just say Nibble blog here. I keep calling it Nibbles because that's the name of the machine, but it's definitely Nibble blog. And then we know it's a PHP extension. We could totally look for the just PHP. If we wanted to look for more, we could say like text, back files, zip files, RAR files, PDF, any kind of extension you want here. Just for the sake of purpose and time's sake, we're just going to search for PHP, and we'll go ahead and start that on the Nibble blog itself. Now, it's already finding a ton of info. If we go to the tree view, I like the tree view. You can see there's index, admin, install, update, sitemap. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff here for this in particular. Now, we found the admin area by just guessing the admin area. And if we did some research on the blog, we probably could have found where the admin page was as well. We could say, hey, Nibble, where's Nibble at? Or the Nibble blog at, right? So we see some interesting information. You can see it's pulling down a ton of files through here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and actually just stop this. We don't need to run this whole thing. So here's some things we can do. We're at a Nibble blog admin area. Now, this won't have default credentials, right? This is somebody's personal blog. And in order to save time, we're just going to talk through this process. What we could do is build out a brute force, similar to the last episode where we captured or intercepted here, and we attempted to, we could use Burp Suite and Intruder, right? And try to do a username and password, something along the lines of admin or administrator, and then use a common bad password list here and see if we can get in. We could also go to the Nibble blog page itself. If we just go back, let me delete this and we'll just go to Nibble blog. And we could come here, and if there were actual blog information, we could use a tool, something like Cool, C-E-W-L, and try to pull down information. We could pull down words off of this list, and we could say, hey, what words do they use in their blog that maybe we can perhaps relate to them and use as a password? We don't need to do that here. There's not a lot. But if we look at some words on here, the password actually ends up being right here with Nibbles. So Nibbles is going to be our password. There's actually a timeout, I believe, if we enter in too many incorrect users and passwords. So we're not going to do that. And if you're interested in brute forcing with Burp Suite, episode 5, I believe, was the episode where we took brute forcing and we used Burp Suite to do that. So let's just go ahead and type in admin and then lowercase, just type in Nibbles. And you'll see that we get access to the page. So we have access. We need to determine if this is actually 4.0.3 because that's important, right? We need to know if this is the right version for us. So we can go into settings here. If you just click around, what you should be doing as well is enumerating this whole application. If you log into an application, you should be looking at what you can do. Can you upload? Can you be malicious? You can manage pages, there's settings, there's themes, there's all kinds of stuff in here, right? But if we come to the settings page here on the first settings tab and we scroll all the way down, you could see that we are running Nibble blog 4.0.3. This is money. This is confirmed, right? We have what we need. We've got user credentials. We can effectively do this. So let's do this. Let's go back to our Metasploit that we had. And I'm going to close out this Dirtbuster here. Okay, so if we looked at our options show out with our info as well. So we need a password required. We need a target URI. Okay, and we need a username. So, we also need our host. So we're going to have to supply a few things here. Let's go ahead and set the password to Nibbles. We'll set the username to admin. We'll set the our host, is it host or host? Our host to 10.10.10.75. And I believe we're going to need to set the target URI to admin.php. And I could be incorrect here, but we'll see. Okay, now let's show options again real quick. And we only have one target. This looks okay. Everything looks like we set it correctly. So let's go ahead and type run and see if that works. Okay, so that didn't work because I am dumb. If you notice, we're actually at Nibble blog /admin. So let's set the target URI to, let's just try Nibble blog first. And then I think it actually knows where the admin directory is. So let's just do /Nibbleblog and then we'll run this. There we go. And now we got a session. So you can see what it's doing is it's uploading a malicious image.php. And if you want to see where that's happening at, we can come into our settings here and go into plugins. And under plugins, there's a My Image. If you actually go to configure here, you can see that we have the ability to upload an image. Now this image we're uploading is a .php. That should not be happening, right? We should have some sort of blacklisting going on or whitelisting on extensions that we want to run. But if we try to upload a PHP file, we're allowed to do so. Since we're allowed to do that, we can then call that PHP file, execute it, and get a reverse shell on this system. So easy breezy here. So now we've got a shell, we can do sysinfo and look at some information here. So this is good information off the bat. We can see that we've got a 4.4.0 Ubuntu, 104 generic. We always want to look for this for privilege escalation purposes. So if we're not a high-level user, let's get our UID real quick. We're not a high-level user, we're 1001 here. So you can see Nibbler, we are not root. So we're going to need to do some privask. One very, very nice thing to do is to just search the Ubuntu on this and look for privesc. That's one of the first steps we would do. But let me go ahead and get into the machine. We'll just type shell. And let's look at the present working directory or print working directory. Okay, let's go into the home folder. And who am I? We are Nibblers. So let's cd into Nibbler. And then let's just ls real quick. So let's ls-la, see what's going on here. Okay, so a couple things. We can grab the user.txt file here. We also have the ability to, I'm going to just type out, or sorry, cat the user.txt. We have the ability here to look at a few things. One that I always like to look at right off the bat is history. Okay, the history command's not found. Now the history command would show us all the history that the user had typed previously. Now in this instance, we don't have it, command's not found, that's fine. But in historical purposes, you never know if a user's typing in a password or some sort of credentials there. I can't talk today, apparently. Another place to look is you see that bash history. We could just cat bash _ history and see if there's anything there. And unfortunately, there's not. So what can we do here? Well, another thing that I like to do before I go searching and hunting for privesc is I like to do a sudo -l. And this might take a second on this machine. This machine's having a little bit of timeout issues. It could be with our shell that we have here since we don't have TTY interaction. But that's okay. Just give it a second. And once that happens, we'll take a look. But so sudo -l is for no passwords. So if you don't know what sudo is running as an admin or running a command or a privilege as root or admin. And it requires a password to do that. So if you're not familiar with sudo, maybe go back and learn some more Linux and just get a little bit more familiar with the basics of Linux. But here we're able to run a command without a password. So if we wanted to do something, for example, let's say cat etsy shadow, we wanted to get a shadow file. Permission denied. Now we might be a member of the sudo group, right? And we could say sudo etsy shadow or the sudoers. But we need to enter a password here. And we don't know the password. We didn't get in with a password. So unless we stumble across the password or we figure out the password, then we're kind of stuck. But we have the ability to run something without a password here, and it's this monitor.sh in our personal stuff folder. So we can ls-la again, and you can see there is no personal or stuff folder, so there's going to be no monitor.sh as well. What that means is we have the ability to create a shell script here in these folders and get malicious. But a couple of things before we actually root this machine. So this one's pretty straightforward on what it can do. And I think the next video we're going to do is going to be somewhere around the sudo -l again. So you can just see how these things sort of work and how we might have to do a little bit of investigative measures. So what we've got here is we've got some enumeration we could do. There's this personal.zip. And if in the back of your mind, you're saying, what's that personal.zip? Perfect thought process, right? We should download this in a perfect world, enumerate it, see what's in there. See if there's any password protections, try to crack those, etc. But just for the sake of time in this video, so it doesn't run too long, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. I'm going to show you the ways in. Now, there are some good scripts out there. Say it wasn't this obvious to us, or there wasn't a sudo -l, and there's no history, and we search on we can type uname-a. We search on the uname here, and we look for this Ubuntu in Google and say, hey, privilege escalation on 4.4.0-104 generic. And nothing comes up. Okay, that's another step that we could take. See if there's any exploits for this. None of that comes up. Well, there are some great scripts out there. And I'm going to leave you to do your own research on this. But there is a script called enum.sh. There's also a Linux priv checker.py. Both of these are absolutely gold when it comes to enumerating Linux. Most Ubuntu Linux machines come with Python installed, and almost always they can run shell, right? So they can run these bash scripts. So With that being said, maybe a challenge to you in this video is to go find these, download them, and then transfer the files onto these machines. How do we transfer the files? Well, we'll do an example real quick, and then I'll let you figure out how to run these and execute them. So we need to create a malicious file that will allow us to run as root here. We have a home nibbler. We need to create a new folder called personal, and we need to make a cd into that, make a new folder called stuff, cd into stuff, and if we print the working directory, okay, we're there. So now we need to make a malicious file, right? We've got a monitor.sh. We can do a touch monitor.sh, or we can actually just echo a command into there if we want. We could echo bash-i, and we can just say, put that into monitor.sh, something like this, ls, and then you cat that monitor.sh and see that it just says bash.i or -i. And I'll explain this here in a second. Now, I did say I was going to do a file transfer. We could do the exact same thing with wget. Say we're over here and we made that file. I'm just going to show you again. I'll make it over here. Echo bash-i into monitor.sh. And okay, we should be able to cat monitor.sh and it should be fine. Now we can just start up python-m simple HTTP server on port 80. And I'm not going to actually grab this file, but you guys should have seen this before, right? Well, we'll just do a wget here or a curl if we need to. Wget on HTTP, whatever your IP address is here, /monitor.sh. And that would get that file as well. So we could just use the echo command here and make it straightforward. So how do we exploit this now? And what are we doing? Why did I just do this bash-i? Well, bash-i just means bash interactive. What we're about to do with a sudo command is we can run this file as sudo and make it execute, right? And when we execute, it's going to echo out, or it's going to run this script which just says bash-i. It's going to give me interactive bash shell. That interactive bash shell is going to be run as root because we're executing it with sudo as root. Now, one thing that we should do here is we should make this file executable. If we ls-la, you can see the permissions here say that we are not executable. We only have read-write access right now. So let's change this to executable as well. And you should always do this on your shell scripts. And we'll say ls-la one more time. And you can see now the X's have been added. Okay, so with this, let's go ahead and sudo this script here. Let's just say sudo monitor.sh, run that. It might take a second. We could say, who am I? Let's see if this actually works. So again, we're timed out here. You could see that it timed out earlier on a command as well. So this machine has a little bit of timeout issues. So just give it a quick second here to load, and there you go. And again, it says we're Nibbler. Let's try it one more time and say, who am I? And we are still Nibbler. What's our ID? We are still Nibbler. Why are we still Nibbler? Let's take a look again. So if we cat monitor.sh, bash-i. All right, let's try running this as sudo home nibbler personal stuff monitor.sh. And then we'll do an ID at the end of this. And let's give this a go, see if this works. And again, if you want these scripts, all you got to do out there is go out there and Google these. These are great. You should find these here on pretty easily. Let's go to Google. And I see we got our shell back. linenum.sh download. You see that. So reboot user on this one, and then lin priv checker. There's actually a Linux privilege escalation. Oh, here you go. Linux privilege escalation scripts down here, netsec, pretty good as well. Lin enum, lin priv checker. This Got Milk blog is actually really good too. So if you check out the Got Milk blog, you can see all the different commands that we're not going to cover today. But he did a great job putting this blog together on what you should be looking for. And then people went out and automated tools that will help do that same stuff for you, all that searching for you, all the hard work. So we had to run this. We tried to sudo this monitor. We had to run the full directory with monitor in there, and that will actually allow us to resolve to the UID of root. So doing this sudo here does not work. Doing it this way will work. So now you can see we are root. We can go ahead and take advantage of that by going to the root folder, pwd. Okay, so we are root at Nibbles, right? So easy. We can ls, and there's the root.txt. I keep wanting to do I've been working in Windows so much lately. I keep saying type cat root.txt, and you can get your root flag as well and go submit those. So that is it for this lesson. From here, there is a box that I want you guys to do. That box is called optimum. Look for the box optimum and go ahead and give that a go. In the next video, we'll cover that as a precursor, and then we'll go into another lesson. But give optimum a go and see if you can do it on your own. Give yourself a little confidence and see if you can't root that on your own, and we'll go from there. So again, thank you for watching this video. Please do hit that like, subscribe, and the bell. Leave a comment down below. If you are watching this video and you want to watch it sooner, or you like the work that I do, please do consider donating to Patreon. Patreon members get early access. You get some cool stickers, some cool swag. You get to see the videos early as well, and some cool little features on Discord. So please do consider supporting the channel in that way. Other than that, thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, my name is a Cyber Mentor, and I will catch you later.